and this is a quick start guide for the new F-5 DCS module. I'm using head tracking, so I'm going to like zoom in so you can see everything that I'm doing. I've recorded this before and it's not showing my mouse location, I don't believe, so I'll try to zoom in to make it very clear what I'm referring to and what I'm switching for you. Doing this on your own, this is probably only like about a 2-minute startup procedure. It's going to be a little longer because I'm going to be explaining a few things while we move along. Right now, we're in the cockpit. I just started the game. There's no power, there's nothing. This is just how you start. First thing we're going to do is zoom in on this lower right quadrant. We're going to flip on the battery switch, the left generator, and the right generator. Right above it, to the left, we're going to flip up the boost pumps for the left and right engines. Go ahead and zoom out, that's all we need for there right now. The engines in this plane need a ground air supply in order to spool up and start. There's the left and right engines. You can see all their parameters right here, the dials for the engines, left and right. We're going to have to ask for the ground crew to connect a ground air supply and then apply the supply to actually spool up the engines for start. Let's go ahead and press backslash to open up the radio or communication menu. F8 for the ground crew, F5 for ground air supply, F1 to connect it. In the upper left of my screen, you can see that we're communicating with the ground crew. They're going to copy and then connect the supply and let us know when it's done. It's done. Alright, the next thing we need to do is tell them to apply the air supply. They're automatically going to apply the air to the left engine first. This is the left engine RPM percentage right here. Once it reaches 10%, we're going to press the engine start button for the left engine, which is located right here. Right after pressing that button, we're going to move the left throttle to the idle position. Once the engine spools up, we'll just repeat the procedure for the right engine, and I'll talk you through it. So let's go backslash for the communication window, F8 for the ground crew, F5 for air supply, F3 to apply the air supply. We're going to see that left engine start to spool up. Once it reaches 10%, we'll press the engine start button. Alright, it's at 10%. Now I'll press that left engine start button and put the left throttle in the idle position. You can probably hear the engine picking up, and you can see that the RPMs are growing here. Once the engine gets started up, we'll ask them to apply the air again for the other engine. Perfect. Let it stabilize. Alright. You know, open backslash for the communications menu, F8 for the ground crew, F5 for air supply, F3 to apply again. And this time they're going to apply it to the right engine.
Copy.
Once it reaches 10%, we'll press the engine start button. At 10%. Then press the right engine start button. And then move the right throttle to the idle position. Now the right engine is spooling up. Alright, the right engine is started. Let's go ahead and communicate to the ground crew again and tell them to disconnect the air supply. We no longer need it. So backslash, F8, F5, this time F2 to disconnect.
Copy.
Alright, the air supply is now disconnected. Just to make it quieter, I'm going to go ahead and close the canopy. That's left control and C. And do a few things. Let's go ahead and turn on some interior lights by moving the mouse over these dials here and just kind of moving the mouse wheel up a little bit. Also turned on some exterior lights as well. Just helps us see a little better. Alright, on the left panel here behind the throttle, we're going to turn on the pitch and yaw dampers with a left click each. On the throttle, this black knob on the side, we're going to right click it to move it forward one space. The gray knob down here below it, we're going to left click twice to move it all the way back. That's going to put the flaps in the automatic position. The next thing we're going to want to do is adjust our trim for takeoff to 6 degrees. That is this dial right up under here. I'm going to go ahead and pull back on it. This is recommended so that when you're taking off, there's not like a violent movement. Make the takeoff a little safer so you won't crash. We also need to manually set the altitude. Right now it's at 1,300 feet. You got to move the mouse over the left little wheel and use your mouse wheel to reset the altitude to 0. A little too far. Good, perfect. We also have 2 HSIs, one here and one here, that we need to manually set to -3 degrees. So on this top one, you're going to left click the dial, push it forward until it's just below the horizon. On the lower one, we're actually going to right click the pull to cage part of the dial here, push it forward. Then we're going to pull it back until it's about -3 degrees. On this aircraft, there's a switch over here to the left of the throttle. It's the nose strut extend and retract switch. You're going to need to switch that before you take off, which will extend the front nose gear so that the plane's in a better position with the front up, so that you can take off with like less space with lower speed. I'll show you what it looks like on the outside of the plane when you engage it. Now it's engaged. You can see it lift. You don't want to taxi around like that, but you can see that it lifts the front of the plane up, and this allows you to take off like in a shorter space with less speed. It's especially important if the aircraft is heavy with weapons. So we're going to go ahead and disengage that for now. Another important thing we need to look at is the radar. This is the radar dial here. We can go ahead and flip it to standby. It takes about 30 seconds to engage. It can only stay on without overheating on the ground for about 10 minutes, so it's probably best to go ahead and turn that on last. We'll see a horizontal line appear on the radar display here. Once it's warmed up, it's beginning to appear now. It'll be at full brightness after about 30 seconds. But yeah, you want to probably turn that on last so that it doesn't overheat, because you only have about 10 minutes. Once you get lined up on the runway, you're going to need to go ahead and set your heading and course. Depending on like which side of the runway you're on, you'll know what to set it as. And that's it. We can press this caution reset button right here. And that's all you really need to know to take off. You'll need to bind a nose wheel steering button, because you will have to hold it down in order to steer with your rudder pedals or rudder controls that you also have bound. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you have a wheel brake bound as well, because it's really easy to pick up speed in this aircraft because it's so light. But I hope that helped you guys get started. And just give me a subscribe and look me up on Steam. I'm Jack9579. Thank you.